So welcome everybody to this, which will be a final EOCCS Community Webinar of the year. For those of you who are wondering what that strange 5-letter word means, it's the EFMD Global Online Course Certification System. And no, we're not here today to sell you certification for our course certification system. We're here to do the other bit of what EOCCS does, and that is to keep alive a community of good practice, get people who are facing similar problems, similar issues, talking to each other. And today is no exception. We've got 3 panelists for you from business schools that you will recognize the names of without a doubt, to talk about, well, are we post-COVID? But we'll call it, just because we're optimists, we'll call this the post-COVID era. But certainly for higher education and business schools around Europe, in fact, around the world, there has been a movement since the pandemic and since the lockdown, either back to normal or more blended or something completely different. And that's what we're here to discuss this afternoon. Are there lessons that have been embedded? What does the new normal look like? And is it really very new at all? So not just about online, we're looking at everything that can be described as business school provision in the teaching area. To start, we're going to ask you, before I introduce our speakers, ask you a couple of questions. There will be 2 polling questions come up on screen. And Camilla, would you like to put the first one up, please? It asks you how you would describe yourself, a sort of categorization of the sorts of roles that we have represented at our webinars. See, one of the benefits post-COVID and post-lockdown is that everyone knows how to do these now. You know, you don't have to explain how the poll works. Okay, so we've got, there's more people joining us as we speak, but we will get on. And as I think you can see, is everyone seeing the result of the poll? We can see we've got a mixture, and this is quite typical for EOCCS webinars, a range of people from senior management through to digital specialists, administrators. There's a huge interest in the how and the why and the what about online education. Okay, Camilla, we'd like to ask the second question. This asks about your own institution, if that's a description that fits you. So if you are a school, a higher education provider, can you please tell me what best describes your post-COVID institution as far as teaching delivery is concerned? That's excellent. I think we may well have got to the limit there, Camilla. Again, we've got a mixture of those reactions, those descriptions across different institutions. So without more ado, I'm going to introduce you to our panel. As you can see on screen, my name's Keith Bond. I'm the director of EOCCS and take part in the leadership of the online community. But today I'm very, very pleased to have with us 3 representatives, different European countries, different business schools, but each with a story to tell. So first of all, if you can open your microphone and say hi, Monica Calcagno from Ca' Foscari in Venice.
Hi, I'm Monica Calcagno. Nice to meet you all.
And then Dimitrios Vlachopoulos from RSM, Rotterdam School of Management, Erasmus University.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for the invitation. Nice to be here.
And last but certainly by no means least, Joe Richardson from Bayes Business School, City of London University.
Hi everyone, great to be here and look forward to hearing if other people's experiences match ours.
Okay, what I've asked our panelists to do, and we'll now share a screen with you. And so if you want to fiddle with that little icon in the top right-hand corner of your screen, you'll be able to see speaker and screen rather than the entire gallery. But if I can ask Monica to go ahead and for Camilla to share, not our internal Slack, but if Camilla can share Monica's slides, a brief introduction to each of these three institutions for those who may not know them, and then we'll get into a bit of discussion, following which any questions from yourselves, which please put in the chat as we go along. Monica, over to you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much. I break the ice presenting my institution and choosing this title, so teaching and learning, because it's really the image I have in my mind when I have to describe the process we are all involved. So please go to the second slide. Yes. So we have a huge past, pushing us towards the future. So we were founded in 1868 as the first business school in Italy and the second one in Europe from Ca' Foscari University. In 2004, we had this second important strategic moment in our life as giving birth to the Department of Economia e Direzione Aziendale and moving then to the new campus at San Giobbe. So you have two images. The first on the left is the image of our main door and main entrance at Ca' Foscari, the building where we have the rectorate and all the administrative offices of our Ca' Foscari University, while on the right we have the new campus on the Laguna, which is connected with the train station and main parts of the city. And then in 2011, we changed our name and fully been recognized internationally, so as a Department of Management at Ca' Foscari University of Venice. And finally, we are moving now to the final step where we are changing and strengthening our position in international reputation and international context as Venice School of Management, with a strong connection with Venice, but also projected towards our future. So please, next. The next slide, please.
Yes, it's trying to, but
it happens. This is we are humans. Everything is online, but we are also made of. So the focus of today is on programs. So our teaching is made of two major bachelor's degrees, one fully in English and the other one, the business administration, both in Italian and English, so with two different courses dedicated to the Italian and the English course. And then we have three major master's degrees in Italian, plus one management degree in fully taught in English, which is divided in three major courses. And we are moving towards the opening of three separate master's degree in English for the next academic year. And finally, our PhD program in 4 years, totally taught in English. Yes, please. The next one. We have also 25 courses on executive education, first level courses spanning from tourist to luxury and sport business strategy or sustainability management. Part of them are taught in Italian, part of them are taught in English. And then we have second level master's degree courses on healthcare, wonderful management of cultural assets and activities, which is fundamentally based on this island, which is connected with cultural and creative industries and all the issues connected with this topic, and strategy, innovation, and so on. And finally, the last slide, the international mobility. So in this process of changing, we are moving towards the accreditation. So we received our eligibility with AQUIS in 2021, and we are moving towards in September the process of where we will be evaluated in this process. And so we are moving towards an international, a stronger international strategy, which is also connected with this offer of double degrees, international PhD program, and more than 60 partners institutions which are working with us. So this is our first introduction. Then I leave the space to the others. And thank you again.
I think it's over to me next. Do you have the slides, Camilla, or?
Oh, I didn't have my microphone on, but yes, I did. So yeah, over to you, Jo.
Thank you.
Yes, wait a sec.
So as Keith said, I'm from Bayes Business School, which is part of City University of London. City consists of 5 schools, 6 actually, apologies, 6 schools, and we're focused very much on kind of the business and professions. So we have a School of Health, a School of Law, and journalism, along with our business school. We're based in London, as you might guess from the name. So you see we're in the heart of the city, really, in the financial district. Next slide, please, Camilla. Thank you. So we're a full service business school. In total, I think we have around 4,000 students. So we have 13 undergraduate programs, and we find obviously on 3 or 4 year programs. So that forms a large percentage of our student base now, and that's shifted from postgraduate previously, but we still have around 1,500 postgraduate students each year joining us. We have 23 specialist master's programs, which is kind of forms the bulk of our postgraduate offer. And we have a single MBA program delivered in 5 different ways, basically. We also have 2 fully online programs, which is one of the areas that I look after. At the moment, we have an MSc in Global Finance and a Global MBA program. And across those, both of which part-time, we have about 300 students studying. We also have an executive education department that focuses very much on bespoke courses with corporates. And PhD programs and 2 apprenticeship programs at the moment. Next slide, thank you. So as you can see from that kind of range, we work with a lot of different types of students. So that was one of the challenges for us during the pandemic. And I thought it would be worth sharing our kind of journey through delivery modes in the pandemic. I think it's an approach that will be familiar to many. So obviously, to start with, we moved all learning online. And then there was kind of a mixture as we were able to deliver in person online between September 2020 and April 21. And then we began preparing for a hybrid model because with around 85% of our postgraduate students are based overseas. So we have real concerns about people being able to travel. And that kind of having a hybrid approach was something we felt we needed, and we took that from September 21 and March 22. I answered our poll as kind of more blended now. So we find that, which I'll talk about more later on, but we find that whilst we are primarily back to face-to-face teaching, we definitely have more of a blend now. So yeah, I think that really reflects our experience. That's all for me.
Thank you, Joe. And finally, last but not least in this round, Dimitrios.
From Italy, and the UK, we will stay in the north and in Rotterdam. I'm very happy to be here, and I am associate professor at Rotterdam School of Management, which, as you can see from the next slide, is part of Erasmus University Rotterdam. And at RSM, every year we educate approximately 9,000 students from more than 90 countries. And we offer a variety of programs, from bachelor programs to PhD, but also executive education programs. The next slide shows that we offer a variety of programs in English language. Also some of them in Dutch. Most of them are full-time, but also we have some part-time options for working professionals who combine studies with their busy lives. And while most of our programs are offered through technology-enhanced on-campus education, we have started exploring intensively the fully online models, especially after the lessons learned from COVID-19 pandemic. And we have developed some online open customized programs, MOOCs, and lately we are focusing on online executive masters. And in the next slide, please, you will see that our school is has obtained a triple crown accreditation, which shows the commitment to high quality education, but at the same time the international standing that we have in business and management education. In the next slide, you will see our dean and our mission, which is to become a force for positive change, make our learners prepared for their roles as leaders, as entrepreneurs, and as citizens of the world. In the same line, in the next slide, you will see that we have a very ambitious education strategy, which focuses on equipping our learners to become, with some transversal competencies, also to become successful communicators, collaborators, and of course, critical thinkers. In the next slide, you will see that RSM is investing a lot on high quality education, and we have groups of learning and innovation experts, digital transformation experts, quality assurance experts, and part of this investment is my role, leading research in management education. And this is all divided, I would say my activity is divided in 3 pillars. The first pillar is to ensure that all innovation across our programs are evidence-informed and are useful for the whole scientific community through publications, through evidence-informed processes. Also, the development and the leadership of educational research projects through EU and local calls, and of course, working directly with industry stakeholders to co-create learning solutions, leading to and enhancing talent development in the region, but also internationally. That was the brief introduction from my side. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dimitrios. And I think everyone heard echoed there something that many of us were familiar with during COVID, where we went overnight to emergency remote teaching, and there's no suggestion that that actually represented good quality online education in every case. But such a thing exists, good quality online education. And so today we're asking about just what has stuck from that time, what new skills there have been, what new areas of instructional design we may be exploring. So the new normal. So let me start, please, by asking, I'll ask Monica first and then our other panelists to respond. What about the perceptions now of digital education following the pandemic? And if you can talk about the perceptions from the perspective of our learners and our colleagues, our faculty colleagues, have these changed?
The question is quite critical in my mind, because I'm teaching now. I have this double perspective because I'm a professor of our Venice School of Management. I'm teaching classes now. and also the delegate for teaching. And so I listened to many colleagues and I joined many meetings with our university and with other universities. And I also coordinating some courses dedicated to learning the digital dimension, how to introduce it in our courses. So I have a complex perception. On the one side, our learners are happy to be again in presence. As a matter of fact, in our university, we are driven by the Ministry of University, which is driving us to be in presence again. So there are rules, regulations, and institutions that are driving you to be in presence again. Then there is another level, which is in our country, the regional level, where there are the institutions in the same region. And again, the strong strategic decision was that of driving us again in presence for many reasons, economical reasons, social reasons, for the sustainability of a system which is connected with universities. And our learners, our students, were probably happy to be again in class after 3 years where they were totally or partly online. So this is a positive perception of being in class again. At the same time, the perception of our colleagues was also positive. The great majority of my colleagues in my department was happy to be again in presence, but nothing was as in the past. Everything was changing again. So our way to be in presence, to be in class today is different from the past. On one side, we have been learning so many things. And so we have been also reflecting critically on our learning objectives, of our learning purposes, because we were forced to be online. And so we were forced to change by chance. And now we are probably exploiting this experience to reflect more critically on the way we are teaching in class in presence. On the other side, I see both positive and negative effects on the digitalization of our learners. There is a certain tendency, in my opinion, there is a certain tendency to be more passive in class because of the digital way to be. They all have their screens on. They tend to use the screen, the computer in class, even if they are in presence. I'm not that sure that they are really using it to be more involved in the class. So I'm critical about this stuff. And we are reflecting on how to involve them differently, because my perception is that there was such a sort of a freezing process of the way they are communicating, exchanging, reflecting, and working together with the others, not just with our professors, but also with their colleagues, their students. So I see them a little bit frozen in a way. So my perception is critical in this in the way.
Thank you, Monica. Joe, where you were giving us examples of you'd always had online students for your online courses, but what about the rest of the school? Has the digital bug been felt there?
Well, certainly our feedback from online students was that during the pandemic, in terms of teaching and learning, at least, they had a really positive experience because they felt much more included in the Bayes wider community because everybody was online. So for us, that's something we really want to try and keep, which is proving a little bit more challenging than we anticipated, perhaps. I think, as Monica says, everybody's very keen to get back to in person and make those sort of personal connections and sort of network and all the things that are a little trickier to do online. But for us, also thinking of our online students and those who just might not be able to attend for whatever reason is a really key sort of area. Our on-campus students, I mean, I think it's quite early days, really. I mean, this is the first sort of academic year that we've been able to deliver sort of normally, if there is normal, for a couple of years. But Generally, there are a few interesting kind of changes in perception. I think students now expect some online, even if they're doing a face-to-face course, they're quite comfortable taking some elements of learning online. But also there is a little bit more expectation around flexibility and the options that should be available. So we're not offering hybrid, for example, this year because it made it kind of quite empty in the classroom. And we've kind of had a few comments around attendance of face-to-face lectures. I think those have yet to return to our previous levels. So that presents us as a school with some quite interesting challenges about how we cater for those expectations around flexibility, which are quite reasonable and rational, but also, how we get that balance with structure and ensuring that students are gaining the wider benefits of being on campus. Logistically, obviously, we can't provide all learning in all formats, so it does present us with some interesting kind of food for thought. In terms of our faculty, I think I've definitely seen more interest and awareness of what can be done online. So people are more interested in teaching on our online programs, for example. And I think as well as kind of having greater confidence in actually using technology, there's also an interest that perhaps wasn't there before, because I think people's perception now is around you can achieve engagement and interaction online, whereas previously we had I used to hear the comment quite a lot, well, online's great, but it doesn't work for my subject area, or it doesn't work for my module. I hear that far less now, which is nice. And I think it enables us to move on to having more positive conversations about the opportunities presented. So the main differences I've kind of noticed, also maybe some perceptions around as you mentioned at the start, what does good online learning look like? I think that might be something that we need to build awareness of, because as you said, emergency remote teaching is not the same as properly designed online. So sometimes those perceptions get a little muddled, but overall definitely a positive openness to opportunity.
That's good to hear, Jo, thank you. And then over to Rotterdam again, where you have examples of online provision from pre-COVID. Again, any changes since then?
Yeah, definitely. Very few things to add, because I think we all echo what Monica and Jo just mentioned. For me, I wanted to highlight the big discussions about the new normal. As much as I hate this word, I was using it all the time also. What would be the new normal, and the new normal during COVID? Let's say that COVID passed, and now we are back to most conventional universities went back to on campus. And some people would say, oh, actually, the new normal is back to where we were. And I don't feel that this is the case. During COVID, everyone was looking forward to go back to the physical presence, to communication, to better relationship, direct communication and exchange with the faculty members. So you were feeling the need. Once we came back, and this is something that I'm doing research with other universities who are conventional, I feel that the whole community is becoming very critical on why we are on campus and what are we doing on campus. Not so much about whether we should be on campus or not, but when I am on campus, what is the added value, and how much does this contribute to my learning journey as a student, and also to my teaching practice, if we are talking about the faculty side. So we have noticed that we don't have any more large inactive lectures where expository learning is teaching is taking place, where someone is talking to a large audience for hours with no proper introduction or interaction. So this has been transformed to online experiences, to very high quality videos, to opportunities to create multimedia resources and the theory. So I've seen that now we take advantage of the in-classroom time to be more productive, to interact, to co-create, to have active and Q&A sessions. Also for the group dynamics, this is very important. Don't forget that we have a large population of international students who left their countries to study in Rotterdam. So being on campus for them is very important. So I would say that I haven't seen the dramatic change in all institutions after COVID. However, the most important change for me and going forward is the integration of online learning good practices to within on-campus education. So I feel that on-campus education has been really enriched with the good practices and the lessons learned from the COVID-19 pandemic.
Dimitrios, thank you. We see there of some very positive signs of that change in perception, perhaps even, dare I even suggest, it's a change in culture of thinking in institutions that are not known for speedy, not your individual institutions, but universities generally not known for quick and fast change. Another question, and Monica hinted at this, but if I can stay with you, Dimitrios, to go around the different nations represented here. I've had a couple of conversations recently, one with an Indian representative and one representative from Malaysia, where there's very different governmental guidelines on various bits of digital education. Malaysia, for example, didn't want any digital within face-to-face after COVID. They wanted everyone to go back and not to be given that flexibility. Whereas in India, there's now a sort of a guideline of up to 20% can be, which actually wasn't there before and gives an opportunity for digital. Obviously, India's got lots of their own reasons why that might be a sensible strategy for them. But what about Holland, and what about your school? What are the guidelines that come down from government and ministry and quality assurance levels to guide what you can do?
Yeah, so just to add a comment on what you just mentioned, this is not after COVID or because of COVID, but there were always been countries more reluctant in recognizing online learning. And also in some of these countries, the public sector is still not recognizing online degrees, and there are like white lists and black lists of universities that some of the are recognized and some are not. So this is not news for those of us who work in online education. During COVID, I was very happy to see that the Dutch government showed a lot of trust to experts and to the institutions. So the ministry issued a number of service documents to direct and guide universities how to deal with the challenges of COVID-19 pandemic. And then it was on the institutions to implement and train and guide their staff accordingly. So these measures were shaped by what was called national team of experts. The government was creating national team of experts, and these experts were issuing recommendations, and then these recommendations were adopted by the government as law and guidelines or the measures to address COVID-19 challenges. So all the guidelines that we were given were based on what experts in the field were suggesting, and the Netherlands is a very open country in terms of how the government is approaching online learning. You will see that, of course, there is an open university running, but also in the conventional universities, there are processes for accreditation and recognition of fully online degrees. In addition, blended learning is also an option to integrate online elements in conventional education. When we are talking about more traditional face-to-face teaching and learning, you will see that a big part of this learning is technology enhanced. Within the classroom, at home, learning platforms are used. So I feel that this journey of 2.5 years with COVID and the lockdowns really leaves the universities a lot of options to design, not to change their learning models, but to design new learning models, so they have a value proposition for every learner with different learning preferences. So I feel it's a huge opportunity, and we see more and more institutions developing different kinds of learning models with the online component stronger than earlier.
Thank you, Dimitrios. Monica, if I can come back to you, you already mentioned the guidance from the Italian and the regional governments. What's the nature of that guidance for the online elements of your provision?
Yeah. So in the past, the online choice was the way to include everybody. Now the presence is again the desire to and the will to be in presence for our universities. We are public universities, we are state universities, so we should be open to everybody. At the same time, the digital dimension could be again a resource for being more inclusive, as an example, to be more sustainable. So the sustainability could be another dimension which is connected with Be Online, to be offering, as an example, courses to people who cannot afford to be here and to travel and to visit other places. And this is also part of a project which is connected with the Utopia project, where we are part of now. On the one side, during the pandemic, the regional government was very strong in giving us and driving us towards a specific rules to respect, in terms of also to organize the same kind of approach in giving exams or ensuring the quality of evaluation during the exam and so on. Now there is a more relaxed set of rules where different universities are embracing different kind of rules. I have in my mind situations in Italy where there are universities who are offering, as an example, the double dimension of the recorded lectures or the digital lectures in parallel with the presence lectures, while, as an example, here in Ca' Foscari, we don't offer online streaming lectures now in parallel with the in-presence lectures, but they are just offered to specific categories, specific class of students who have specific tasks, like as an example, part-time students or students with special needs, and so they are allowed to receive recorded lectures or spatial support for their learning. So there is a variety. So at the beginning, rules were mandatory for everybody, so we were respecting all the rules altogether. Now we are following different kind of strategies in a system where we are moving towards the experimentation of different strategies. As an example, I think that one possible option for us is using the digital online also to enrich the physical presence of our students, maybe with small groups of students. So using the digital class as an experimentation to add value to your classes, working in small groups of students and not in large classes. This is also, but I'm getting out of the track and probably anticipating other things. This is probably asking for how to motivate people and professors and universities to invest more, not just in terms of digital resources, technological resources, but also in time, in efforts, because everybody was discovering that offering online and blended courses was even more demanding than being in presence, because you have to plan more than in the past. You have to prepare more your materials, and you have to revise and to redesign your classes. So I don't want to enter in another part of the conversation, but now we are living in a more free context, even though with some rules which are dividing strictly those courses who are offered in presence, which should respect a certain percentage of, a huge percentage of classes taught in presence, which are separated from hybrid or totally online courses where we are allowed to offer more digital courses. But these are three separate three separate kinds of courses we can offer.
Monica, thank you. Yeah. And if I go to Joe with that same question, is the UK government, which of course is now freed from European influence, shall we say it that way, whether they've come up with particular guidelines or frameworks for blended and online and hybrid?
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple of reports which I'll post in the chat that were published, one in February 21, which was a very, I think, quite forward-looking, optimistic report called Gravity Assist, Propelling Higher Education Towards a Brighter Future. So you can kind of tell the tone of it from that. And that was really focused on, digital access, skills and inclusion, and the opportunities that the kind of new approaches could bring. It wasn't regulatory, it was just advisory, shared some examples of good practice, quite a nice report. Later on, the tone changed a little. The UK government was quite directive about expecting a return to pre-pandemic levels of face-to-face teaching. That was earlier this year. And they decided to carry out a blended learning review, the results of which were published in October. So I will share that report in the chat as well. And that, it was interesting, shared, I mean, unsurprisingly, it found examples of both good practice and bad practice in blended learning. I think the main goal really is to ensure that universities are upfront with students about what they can expect. I think some of the messaging has got a bit mixed and maybe still the case. So that was the key goal there. And that report is interesting, but it really kind of just lists, it does have compliance aspects, but it lists more things that you shouldn't do. So things like providing out-of-date lecture recordings as your online resources, for example, making sure you give students adequate feedback. These are all kind of things hopefully we all are aware of as educators anyway, but I'll put both those in the chat in case they're of interest. And certainly from a university perspective, I think there's hopefully, as Monica said, more awareness about the need for investment in digital tools and technologies. So I think that's a positive, more awareness that students will probably spend just as much, if not more time in our digital estate as on our physical estate. And I think that's should be really positive as we think about our digital infrastructure going forward.
Joe, thank you. You reminded me in what you just said there of, you'll know David Lefebvre from Imperial, and he said on more than one occasion, go up to your Vice Chancellor and ask them, when are we going to spend as much on digital as we do on bricks and mortar, and see how long your job lasts. But it really is good to hear those things. I'm going to skip the next question because we have covered some of those things, but and really this might summarize now this discussion before we go on to questions from our audience, and that is about technology has come a long way in those 2.5 years of COVID. Developments have been there, but has there been a change in the willingness of institutions and individuals to adopt these and use these technologies? Joe, would you like to respond to that one for us first?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I think I sort of started to answer it at the end of the last question, but there's definitely an increased interest in the tools available that we have to support teaching and learning, particularly more views expressed on our virtual learning environment, for example, and more kind of opinions about how it could work better for delivering online and blended, which is refreshing from our perspective, because we've had to design custom approaches for online. And I genuinely believe that what works well for online delivery should work for blended and all other types of delivery as well. So I think driving that forward is both faculty expectations and student expectations now. And as I said, that acknowledgement that people will spend more time in there. Certainly thinking we're not sort of touching too much on assessment, but students have expressed concerns about in-person exams and needing to write by hand, for example. So it really makes us think about whether we are offering students the best tools to be successful, thinking about digital platforms for assessment, and whether typing exams is a reasonable expectation given our working environment. But we're also thinking quite carefully about how we, as we've moved into a world of sort of hybrid and remote working, how do our tools and our approaches prepare students for that world? Are we providing them with an authentic environment that prepares them for the workplace? Are we equipping them with those skills for collaborating remotely and building remote teams and so on? So we're sort of thinking about how we build those into our curriculum as well. So definitely something on our mind, but it's a big task ahead of us, I think. And as you mentioned earlier, universities are traditionally quite slow to change. So how do we keep up with the constant technical innovation? It was a challenge previously, and it remains a challenge for us now, I think.
Thank you, Joe. Dimitrios, if I can ask you to comment on that about the adoption of technology. Are people happier to use it?
Yeah, very few things to add from lovely answer. I am totally identified by your answer, Joe. Also, I would say that we always had, and we will have people who are conservative and are reluctant in using technology. I see this group of people becoming a smaller group. The people who are more mainstream and they weren't very sure. Now they have much more confidence. They have tested many more tools. The only thing I wanted to highlight is, for me, it's not only about technology as a tool, as a software or a hardware, but it's how we achieve a nice marriage between pedagogy and technology. So people really understand that these two within a methodology or a framework will promote active learning or will enhance student outcomes, because the tool as a tool may not be very useful or very successful if the pedagogical framework hasn't been built around it. And another aspect that I would like to mention when it comes to technology adoption is sometimes we shouldn't forget the context of implementation. And I wanted to say that I am my university and I'm living in a privileged part of the world, where I have access to strong internet connection, to the technology that is needed to have a very smooth and successful online learning experience. However, when we are talking about online learning, we may have learners from all parts of the world where they don't have access to the necessary resources, they don't have access to stable and strong internet connections. So when we design a learning experience, I think we need to give equal opportunities to everyone to be successful in these experiences and consider whether everyone can really follow the tools and the activities that we are suggesting in our online learning programs. This is important because it's a global classroom, the online classroom. So it may be by a Dutch or a UK institution, but you see that the student population is from all over the world. So this is another element I would like to bring on the table here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and Monica, is that a familiar theme to you about the access to technology of our learners?
Yeah, about the question about the technology, the access of technology and the willingness of people and institutions, I would say that in our department, we really experience a huge investment in technological resources. We both new technologies, we adopted new technologies, we changed our rooms in order to host new technologies for teaching classes and also organizing hybrid meetings and blended meetings, as it is always happening now in my department. So there is the investment into technological dimension. There is also the will to exploit technology as a possible resource for gaining flexibility. In my opinion, flexibility is something very important, both for the community of who are teaching in class and also for our students, gaining enough flexibility in order to combine different kinds of lives, where they have families, where they have part-time works, the jobs, they have other things to do. And so also the blended online could be a flexible way to face these kind of challenges. At the same time, the constraints are still constraints connected with the previous word, the way, as an example, the way we plan our courses in the program, where the flexibility means that you have completely revised and redesigned the plan. You are combining online or blended and presence courses in order to really live a flexible day for our students, as an example, or for professors teaching in universities. So flexibility is driving the will of people to exploit technology as a way to gain a flexibility. At the same time, you need to really redesign the way you are planning your courses, rethinking your physical buildings, your physical spaces. And so there is a mix again of digital and physical, also in the resources which are needed to exploit really the digital innovation in your courses.
Monica, thank you. And I'm going to bring that part of our proceedings to a close so I can focus on a couple of excellent questions that we've already had in the chat. And the first one, for speed, I will read out this question or ask this question of our panelists. And it's from Catherine Pereira from Bogota in Colombia. Welcome, Catherine. And she asks what your view might be on, particularly with online, but the assurance of learning online. So I think we're focusing there on assessments and the validity and credibility of assessments that can be done online as far as the learning outcomes are concerned for courses. So who would like to go first from our panel there? Sorry, Joe, go on.
No, I was just going to say, I mean, it's an interesting point. I don't know that it's an issue for online learning. I think it's an issue for all learning, particularly with recent developments in AI. I mean, that's caused a sort of a huge amount of concern amongst colleagues in our institution and in other institutions about how you assure any learning now. I mean, a lot of the ways that we might consider doing it are not very scalable as well. For example, vivas and so on, and video presentations and things. So I think this is not just an online learning issue. I think it's perhaps one that we certainly saw more instances of issues with academic integrity during the pandemic as we moved to purely coursework, and then we've had a lot of discussions about what is an exam and the validity of that. The instinct there is to move very much back to in-person exams. Online, we still have coursework and we have a real mix of assessment to try and ensure that we are assessing across different areas. So peer assessment with group assessments, courseworks, reports, presentations. So we do have a mix there, but it's a really difficult area. I don't know if Monica or Demetrius have similar experiences.
Yeah, if I just add something based on my experience, we had terrible discussions in the last few years about how to evaluate and how to really assess the preparation of our students in an online presence where everybody was controlled, but at the same time there were so many chances to escape the rules and to get the marks differently. So my solution, and the solution we are experiencing with other colleagues and also reflecting on it, is that of splitting the assessment in the process of evaluation, starting from the beginning and using different kinds of assessment tests in order to test their process of learning along the process and not just at the end of the process. And another possible option for me was that instead of using tests, instead of using classical questions, I just redesigned the questions in order to let them free, even to use resources, because my open questions were completely different from the past. So I was not asking them something connected with reading a part of the chapter, but more a personal reflection on something. So using resources, and maybe they could also use online resources in the meantime. Also, they just had some short, not so short reflections, critical reflection, putting together different resources. So overcoming the problem of coping or making situations which are hazardous situations in the exam. So this was my personal way to design a solution.
Yeah, if I may add, first of all, I would agree 100% that this is not a problem in quotation marks for online learning. This is for education in general, and I will include school education as well, because it is not only for universities. Then with Joe's comment on AI made me think that I don't want to be the academic integrity policeman in this world, like running behind the student to see who wrote indeed the assignment, or who cheated or who not. I feel that this is not the work that academics we should do. What we should do is to have a very organized and well-structured assessment strategy, which includes several assessment points, also formative assessment, alternative assessments, different formats, which require collaboration, which require presentation, demonstration of concrete skills, and also have the trust that, at least from our side, we did everything that we could do to ensure and that we are testing the right skills, and that there is evidence of the development of those skills. It is very difficult then to go, because now it's a chatbot that pops in and is the topic of the year for all academia, but tomorrow it will be something else, and then the year after something else. So for us, our job is to create a very solid assessment plan, take into consideration differentiation, the different learning preferences, also what the labor market needs, what kind of skills and competencies should we focus more, and also trust that this will help us collect evidence about our students' performance.
Demetrios, thank you very much for that. And I think Joe mentioned very early on in our discussion that there's obvious logistical problems in providing everything in every way to everyone, and changing from the very simple not very labor intensive setting an exam to different forms of assessment. So it's the logistics, the business model, if you like, of schools and universities in this that might need to be rethought. But thank you very much. We've got a final question from Gabriel. Gabriel asks, which would you say is the best model to approach hybrid classes if you can't help to have them? Not methodologies to use in class, but which rules are necessary in which conditions and who should have access to them. So hybrid, what would and we've only got a couple of minutes left, top tips for hybrid, do's and don'ts. And I know, Joe, you mentioned that you had not decided not to use hybrid this year. What was the driver there?
Yeah, I think it depends what your goal is. I mean, ours was to try and encourage students to come back to campus, as but in situations where a student is ill or has extenuating circumstances, as I think Monica mentioned earlier, there are exceptions you might want to apply. For me, it's about being clear and consistent to students about why what you're doing and why you're doing it. And if you are providing it as an alternative mechanism, I think you have to set that expectation early. Or the other way of doing it, which we've thought about with some of our elective modules that are over capacity, for example, is you declare up front that you are going to attend this module. This module is available as in hybrid form, and you are going to attend it throughout in remotely, or you're going to attend it throughout in person, because otherwise it becomes quite difficult for us to manage, I think.
Okay, anything, Demetrios or Monica?
Yeah, just to feed on this last comment is, if this is offered as an alternative, we need to make sure that the experience is equivalent in terms of quality. So the fact that some people, for whatever reasons, Joe mentioned a few of them, are following the course remotely, this should be equally well planned, and we should have enough activities and evidences of the development of skills and competencies throughout, so that the experiences should be equivalent in terms of quality and preparation of resources, assessments, etc. The fact that someone, for example, because of health issues, they can't attend in class, this doesn't convert them into second category or second class students. So I feel this should be, and also that there is no one approach fits all, because we would have implemented in every institution and we would be all very happy and with the outcome. Also, it has to do with the student population, the strategy of the schools. It depends on the local context a lot.
Thank you very much. And Monica, I'm sorry I let you in, but we are right on time. So hold that thought. There may be an opportunity to share it another time. But we've come to the end of our hour. Can I thank our audience for attending, for the excellent questions we were asked there, but particularly our three panelists, Dimitrios, Monica and Joe. Thank you so much. And I wish everyone a very happy, from the EOCCS team and from our learning community, a very happy Christmas and a prosperous new year when it arrives. And I'm just waiting to hear from Camilla whether there's an exit poll or one will be sent to you in due course. But we do like to follow up on these webinars to make sure that we're hitting the right spots, and to ask people, and please do that, just write to us and tell us what subjects, what topics you might like to be discussed in the future in this sort of format. Thank you very much, everybody. Been great to see you all, and thanks, panelists. Bye-bye, everyone.